Hello and welcome to Stories That Shape Us. My name is Joanna Daniel. So I'm doing this before you say I do series because of a question, a comment that was made, and I thought let me do this series. Let me come and have a conversation with you around let's talk about some of the stories that shape us, that impacts how we function in relationships. So one of the stories that you need to process or know before you get married is know your attachment style before you're married. It's really important to know your attachment style. And what that does is it gives you a better understanding of yourself. It really gives you a better understanding of yourself. So you are going into a relationship with this level of self-awareness that is going to help you to communicate better. It's going to help you to understand your partner better. It's going to help to manage conflict better. It's going to help to solve so many problems because you know it's going to help to prevent conflict because you know your attachment style, because you are aware of how that relates in relationships. It really helps to minimize conflict. I can't tell you how much it does. So I'm not going to go through all the attachment style right now. What I'm going to do instead is put below this video the I did a series on attachment earlier on in the Stories That Shape Us podcast, and I explained the attachment style. And of course, different place teaches it different way, but I'm going to use these four broad categories. Of course, you might not be just one, so you might be a combination. So there's secure attachment, where there is love and where there is security in the caregiving relationship. When you had a need, the need was met, you were very sure about people being present for you, people were available, you felt loved, you felt connected, there was peace and there was a sense of safety. Then there is avoidant attachment, where there was not connection in a caregiving relationship. When you had a need, it wasn't met. You learn how to look after yourself, you learn how to care for yourself. And so as an adult, you are more closed, withdrawn, struggle with connection, learn how to self-regulate on your own because you've always had to care for yourself. Then there's anxious attachment pattern, this anxious avoidant, anxious ambivalent, and they're different. There are different explanations for those two, but I'm going to say broadly is there was inconsistency which creates some kind of anxiousness, and so sometimes you might find yourself creating, I'm going to say, chaos, creating situations that keeps people with you. You're more focused on other people meeting your need, where the avoidant is focused on meeting their own needs. And then there's this organized attachment that is more, there's a lot of fear around relationships and connection. Of course, that really small definition, there's much more to attachment. I would recommend that you learn as much as you can about attachment, understand your own attachment pattern and how that plays out in relationships, because it's going to be so important. And it's important because, for example, if you are avoidant and you are in a relationship with someone who is anxious, you you look after yourself and you close in, and they need other people to meet their needs. So one is meeting their own need and one needs the other to meet their need. Now that can create a lot of tension in relationships when there's no understanding of what's happening. When you can't say, because you don't know, you can't say, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need some time. I need some time alone. Please give me some time. I can talk about this later. The person who is anxious don't know that that's what's happening, so they feel like you're avoiding the discussion. You tend to avoid difficult conversations. You're emotionally withdrawn and you're not emotionally available, which might be not what you want and not the image that you want to give, because you want to connect, but you're just afraid of connection because it wasn't available before. And so those are some of the stories that shape our view of relationships and our view of self. When connection was in short supply, or when connection was just not available at all, either through caregivers who didn't understand connection and know how to do it, caregivers who were busy and so couldn't connect consistently because of busy work. And so home in general may have been a wonderful place, parents who work hard to provide. However, they were not there constantly. And so that might create its own pattern because they weren't around as much as you wanted them to. And so you learn how to look after yourself, or you develop maybe, or it was the parent who had a lot, so they give you things to, when you're not, when you're feeling sad, you got things. And so, these things create patterns for us. So it's important that we know what's my attachment style, what's my attachment pattern. So okay, so if I'm avoidant, this is how I communicate, this is how I am in relationship. If I'm anxious, this is how I'm likely to show up. If I'm anxious avoidant, if I'm fearful avoidant, how does that present for me in relationship? If you don't know, you might struggle to know what you need. You might struggle to ask for what you need. You might feel really bad, or ashamed of your need. You might feel ashamed of expressing your need. You might feel like, if I have this need, people will leave, because people tend to leave when there was no connection, there was nobody to attach to. When there's a crisis for you, you might withdraw from everybody to go deal with the crisis, because in the past there was no one available to help you through crises, so you learn how to do them on your own. And so this shows up in all relationships, your interpersonal relationships, and your romantic relationships. But when you know, and you can, and your partner is open to learning that too, you can explain this and said, look, this is what's happening, these are my patterns, as much as is available to you. This is Do the attachment style questionnaire together, so you can have a conversation about it. I promise you, it will deepen your connection. And if it doesn't deepen the connection, then at least it's a guide for you on, okay, so we're opposite and we can't agree. If there's a person who don't agree in attachment pattern, and they don't agree with knowing these things, then these things are indicators as well. And that's why this series is Before You Say I Do, because you want to know as much as you can about yourself. You want to know as much as you can about your partner. You want to develop healthy communication, healthy conflict management, a healthy dynamic in your relationship. You want to create a safe space where there's a lot of empathy, where there's no projection and blame, where there's responsibility taken, so everybody can know that I can trust my emotions with this person. As you're learning how to open yourself up to connection, you know that this person is safe enough for me to open myself to connection with. Because before, identifying that I was closed to connection, because I was afraid that if I open myself up, I'm going to be left and it's going to hurt. And so sometimes we close ourselves off to protect ourselves from hurt, but it's a subconscious decision. So we don't know that we don't know consciously that we're doing it. And so we might invite people in our lives that are loving and kind, but we're still afraid of opening ourselves up. And the way life is, because it's not neat, we're going to hurt each other. So this person, you're learning how to open yourself, but now they hurt you. They've hurt you, and it might send you back into your bubble with the door closed, no handle on the outside, determined not to let them in again. It's just that sometimes it's such a subconscious choice to go into our bubbles and close the door and not let them in, and there's no handle, and so they're outside pounding, but the music is probably on and we can't hear. And so how the next person experiences this is it's extreme withdrawal and emotional availability, which is very hurtful to them because they don't know what's going on. And if you don't understand how avoidant operates, then you won't have the language to explain it. And you can see how things can begin to break down. Sometimes this is where emotions comes in, where there's a lot of shouting and conflict and arguing. And it's only because I process completely different. My attachment pattern is different. I need some time. Please don't pursue me at this time. I just need some time to understand and to grow. There's lots of resources around are available on understanding your attachment pattern. I have some resources that I'm going to put below this video. If you're in a relationship or considering having a serious relationship, I'm going to recommend that you use the resources that are available Before You Say I Do, so that you can learn as much as you can about yourself before you do it. So I have an ebook before you say I do. And it's, I think, when love is not enough, because when we have experienced trauma, love won't be enough. Not the emotion of love won't be enough. It's going to be a decision that is made day by day by day, understanding yourself, understanding your partner, and beginning and being willing to work together to understand and to grow together. Love won't do it. It won't be enough. And I know sometimes when people are dating, they think, well, this don't apply to us because we just love each other, we just get on so well. But in the next phase, when you're settling in, because another thing that is you need to be aware of, sometimes when people are avoidantly attached, or that it can come across as emotional availability, when the relationship becomes deeper, the level of emotional investment that is required might be a scary place to go. And so sometimes it's at that point that some people sabotage the relationship, and they don't know why they do it. But it's because the relationship is going now to a place where emotional investment is required. And I am afraid of making that level of emotional investment. And so, because I'm afraid of making that level of emotional investment, I'm going to do what I do to sabotage. So I'm closing the door, removing the handle, turn the music on, and I can't hear you when you're reaching out to me and you're calling for my attention and you just want connection. So you become present physically, but emotionally you're not there. Or you become angry and withdrawn, or you shut it down. We do different things to sabotage relationships at that point. That's why it's important to know. Healing is self-awareness. So as you get to know yourself, and you're healing, you get to know yourself, you get to understand yourself, and it's that self that you get to connect with somebody else with, and build a relationship that is caring, loving, safe space for both of you. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.